Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. We've been chatting back and forth for this last 5 minutes, and Soumita's been with us all through. Very excited to have her on board. A quick introduction for all of you. Our speaker today, Soumita Khanna, brings over 2 decades of experience in education, teaching, and teacher development. She holds an MSc in mathematics and a B.Ed from Delhi University, and she's worked extensively as a senior and college level maths educator. Soumita has taught some of India's most respected institutions, including Delhi Public Schools, Kendriya Vidyalayas, Army Public Schools, Bhavan Vidyalaya, and national training institutions such as the College of Military Engineering and the Combat Training Wing in Pune. Her journey spans classrooms, teacher training, and content design studios, giving her a well rounded understanding of what can really help schools grow. Soumita is currently the projects and content head at Wings, where she leads teacher training and learning design initiatives focused on turning strong pedagogy into real classroom practice. She's known for helping teachers move from just knowing concepts to actually confidently applying these concepts in their classrooms to help improve student learning outcomes. An expert in NLP, that's neuro linguistic programming, and mental health facilitation. Soumita brings empathy, clarity, and reflection into teacher capacity building. She is deeply valued for her practical insights, structured thinking, and deep understanding of classroom dynamics. Before I hand over to Soumita, at the heart of her work is a very simple belief that when teachers are empowered, classrooms transform. Soumita, we are so delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for agreeing to lead our webinar, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Shalini. Means a lot. Just a small correction. I do not work with teachers in my current role, but Wings does look at teacher training as well.
Sure.
So it's a part of what Wings does.
Sure.
So that's that, right. Thank you so much. It means a lot for that wonderful introduction and the esteemed audience that is joining in. I am literally stupefied to see so many people. I hope I bring value to this session. And thank you to the lead group team actually for giving me this opportunity to present today. Now, before I start, I want to make a confession. I am going to be faithfully guided by my set of notes here today for two simple reasons. What I'm going to talk about is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it, so I might tend to stray. So I have been scribbling down incessantly ever since I got to know that I will be presenting, and I don't want to miss a thing. Like Aerosmith says, huh? Literally, I don't want to miss a thing, but I also don't want to overshoot the time. Because coming from this profession, especially, I totally understand what a valuable resource and what a scarce resource at that time is. So thank you everyone for sparing this 1 hour, being here to listen to me. I'm truly grateful and I'm truly humbled. And I think I will have to share before I start, right? Yes. Right. So, like Shalini very nicely elaborated that maybe I will go to the slideshow first. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Right. So, like Shalini very appropriately described the title of this talk today, we are going to explore exactly why teacher capacity building, which is like the talk of the town these days, is going wrong. Why aren't we, despite all the capacity building and the seminars and the workshops that we are attending as teachers or hosting as leaders, why aren't we seeing any impactful, any effective, sustainable change in our classrooms? So we will understand that first, and then we will try and look at how we can fix whatever is going wrong. So before I begin, I want to address this leap of faith in my opening slide and see what I consciously believe is that whatever we have been doing up till now has hit a roadblock. the data that we are taking in is not informing the next level of change. Like I said, capacity building is not really bearing fruit as ideally as we would want it to. The leadership also, in a way, is struggling to manage or balance the policy requirements that the schools get for teachers and to actually handle the overload that the teachers are um, under these days. So, in such a scenario, I ideally will not look for more metrics. That is me. I will actually try and look at a wiser interpretation of the whole scene. And that is the leap of faith that I want you all to look at. That for this 1 hour, we will shift our gaze from external optimization to inner alignment. And what this word inner alignment means, this is going to repeat through the talk today, but I will address it as and how we proceed. So, yeah, so we start with the fact that we are looking at changing, bringing about some positive change in our education, but we are not able to do it. So I propose let's understand what the structure of change is. Right. So I open my talk with the aphorism that nothing in life is constant but change. Having said that, change is not neutral. It can either be positive or negative or zero change, evolution, stagnation, or regression. Now, how do we control the aspect that whatever change we bring in is neither stagnating and nor causing us to regress, but is actually taking us forward, is actually building us, evolving us? For that, we need to understand that change always acts on something, be it a system, be it a person. If I want some change in myself, that change is going to act on me, be it a habit. Right. Now, for the change, to move that thing forward, it has to be in tune with how that thing actually works. That is the alignment that I'm going to talk about. So, as per me, the difference between positive, negative, and zero change is not effort. It is the fit between the change attempted and the system being changed. I think that will bring us to a very generic question that pertains to the overall essence of our talk. And I think Shalini or Garima will have the results when, okay, it's up there. I want you all to answer what you think. Why do most New Year resolutions fail? Yeah, we get a fair idea. I think that's it. Right. So I'm wondering how even 3% opted for identity conflict. I wasn't expecting, but I'm truly impressed. Let's hold this thought here and let's proceed in the talk and then see what this question actually meant. Now, my background, how do I? Yeah, I can't seem to change the slide.
Can you try and go
Back.
off full screen mode and then, yeah, back to full screen and then try and change?
Mm-mm.
Not working.
I will share again.
Yeah, I think that might help also. Yes. Are you able to move forward?
Wrong.
While you're tapping on the screen, you're not able to move forward.
Tapping on the arrow and even,
Just
okay,
tap on the screen.
yeah, right, got it. Thank you. So sorry for that little glitch. Now, what the screen shows in front of you is actually a model. Let me first tell you why a model. So my background in operational research has trained me to look for models literally because I believe that complex systems do not operate randomly. There is method in whatever madness you encounter. and so as to be able to understand how change can be structurally aligned with its context. Like I was just discussing before the poll question, I am going to propose this framework, which is out there on your screens, that was designed by the famous anthropologist Gregory Bateson. Who, by the way, fun fact is that he was an ardent admirer of somebody called Bertrand Russell. If there are mathematics teachers in there, father of the theory of logic, uh, Gregory Bateson, whatever work he proposed, Ecology of the Mind is a very famous book that he wrote. He has based all his research on logic. And therefore, trust me when I say that this model is not out of some opinions or emotionally led. It is a very systems-based thinking. And like the model shows, it's basically a hierarchy of certain levels, 6 levels to be precise, that Bateson said were actually the levels of how we experience the world, starting from the outermost, which is at the bottom, environment. And as we go up, we're actually going inside. So our vision or our purpose, as the highest level says, is something that we feel inside of us. And that is what the deepest experience resonates with. Right. So also you would see that along with these levels, I have written some questions. What are these questions? They will help you answer or look for the factors that will determine what each level pertains to. So for instance, if I'm looking for a change in myself, the first level environment will talk of where I am. It will talk of my external context. It will talk of the surroundings that I place myself in, the people I'm surrounded with, basically my physical space, the space that I inhabit. Next is the behavior, and that takes care of my actions, my responses, the things that I do. Basically, what is it that I'm doing? Next is capabilities, and that talks of skills and strategies and the knowledge used to perform my behaviors. How am I existing in this planet? Beliefs and values. These are the convictions and the standards I live by. They basically answer the question why I do what I do. Then comes identity, which is our sense of self, clearly answering the question, who am I? And last of all, deepest of the level at which we experience the world is our purpose. It is a broader mission. And the question actually for this is the overarching why, the bigger why, a greater calling, like I call it. Now, why I feel this is an important model is because it empowers us to identify exactly where an obstacle to change lies. And in doing so, it also clarifies what type of intervention is needed for a sustainable change. Okay. Now, what you have on the screen now are the takeaways from this model that Bateson talked about. He basically said that whatever change you're attempting at, that will happen at different depths. And if you're attempting a change at the surface level, that will be different from structural change, a change which attacks your deeper, innermost levels. But trying to fix deeper problems with surface interventions is what he, quote unquote, said creates instability. Right. So the three takeaways become that changes at higher levels, the deeper levels, cascade down, affecting all lower levels. The second is about how changing a lower level may or may not change the higher levels. And the third is that higher levels offer more leverage for fundamental lasting change. Now, this theory is so powerful in spearheading change that leadership coaches and trainers across the world vouch by it. And how I will illustrate how sharp a model this is by sharing an example from my personal life, which has been unfolding with my husband. So, my husband is an active chain smoker, right? He started smoking when he was 14 years of age, and by the time that I met him, he was 29, and there was no time of the day when you would not find him with a cigarette in his hand. So, our daughter joined us 4 years later, and over the time that we've spent together as a family, both of us, me and my daughter, we have tried everything. We have tried emotional blackmail. We have tried manipulation. We have tried calculating the freaking expenditure that an addiction or a habit as expensive as smoking causes. We have tried to give him medicine. We have tried alternate therapy also, but nothing got him to quit. No weaning method would sustain, and he would invariably fall back to his addiction and habits. Now, about a year and a half ago, he landed in the hospital in a medical emergency. That scare was enough for him. I mean, he was in and out of the hospital for 3 and 4 months. But the first day, obviously, a hospital will not allow you to smoke. So the first day he quit and he spent 7 days there and he was back at home. We did not see him returning to his pack of cigarettes. And that surprised me. And it was around this time that I was pursuing my certification in NLP and therefore getting introduced to this idea of levels of change. And I tried to analyze what was happening. And I realized that all these years we had been trying to alter his behavior. We kept telling him, please mat piyo, please mat piyo. We were trying to upgrade his capability. Please try and resist the urge to smoke. We were trying to change his environment. I was calling up people in his office and saying, please keep the packs out of his reach. Do not let him have a smoke. But his habit was not changing, right? When did it change? As soon as his goal changed. When he realized that he was going to be looked down upon as somebody who was ill, gravely ill. He did not want to be identified as somebody who was in and out of the hospitals. So his purpose in life changed, and he for himself thought that I needed to be healthy, and the desired change set in. Right. And which is why Bateson's conclusion through the framework is so radical when he says that change happens only when it is aligned with the system that it needs to change. Now, let us see how we can use this model to look at the context of education. What you have here, so you would also see that I am presenting it in the form of a pyramid, only because Gregson's initial model was slightly improvised by somebody called Robert Dills, and he presented the hierarchy in a pyramidal way, keeping the purpose of the vision at the top, the apex, and the lower levels at the bottom of the pyramid. Right. Now, if we address the context of education and we try to fit in the model to see where we are going wrong, we have to first believe that the quality of education will never be able to exceed the quality of its teachers. Right. Since a teacher is the primary agent who translates educational policies and curriculum into actual learning experiences, he or she becomes the primary carrier of change in any learning setup. So we shall be using this model for the context of teachers now. And as you see, I have literally charted out what the questions answer for teachers. So environment becomes where the teachers work, the class size, the timetable, the policies that guide their teaching. Behavior becomes what the teacher does, the strategies, the techniques, and the routines that she or he follows. Capabilities are what the teacher knows how to do, right? The skills, the methods, the training, what we literally try and build up in the capacity building. Beliefs and values are what the teacher believes is possible when she or he is in the classroom, what they think matters, what is important for them. So that's beliefs and values. And then comes identity, which is a very pertinent question where the teacher tries to answer for herself or himself. Who am I when I'm taking my class? When I'm standing in front of my 50, 60, however many students, what role do I take on? Am I an instructor? Am I a content deliverer? Do I become a facilitator? Am I a disciplinarian? A caretaker? I hope you realize what I mean when I say the teacher must identify who she becomes when she steps into the classroom. And then lastly, the teacher must specify for himself or herself why they're teaching at all. Now, again, as I say this, we do realize that the question now becomes at what level are we developing our teachers? And this is very evident from the way I put it on your screens, that most teacher training is for now working at the outer three levels. We try and tweak the environment. We ask them to rearrange boards. We ask them to redo the sitting. We train their behaviors. We ask them to use group work. We say use inquiry-based learning. We try and enhance their skill. We say, why don't you use a flipped classroom technique? Why don't you use activity-based learning? But what I believe is, if the teacher is not convinced, if she believes that she is only in the class to cover the syllabus, or that the children are not interested in studying these days, or everything is going to be done by the coaching centers, what are we doing? We just have to be there. If the teacher is convinced of such a role that she takes on in the class, whatever change we desire or work towards will not set in simply because it is not aligned, it is attempted at the wrong level. Right? The teacher is not open to that change. Keep doing whatever you want to do, it will fail eventually. Now, that brings us to our next question. What do you think most determines uh, how teachers or whether teachers sustain change? Yeah, I think we know what the result is pointing towards. So I literally expected this. And what I have to say to this result is, I'm with you, but there's one question that I'll ask you all. Internal motivation matters, but do you realize that motivation is unstable? There are days when you feel highly motivated, there are days when you do not feel the motivation. So it's something that rises and falls. What sustains behavior when motivation fades is what I say is identity, right? So that's how we come to our next slide, which is going to look at this figure from a very reputed organization who publishes content for teaching and pedagogy, the OECD, right? This paper was published back in 2022. And as this figure also particularly specifies that the teacher professional identity, who the teacher sees themselves as professionals, is strongly linked to teaching quality. It is linked to long-term commitment, and it is also linked to positive outcomes for students. Now, this is in the context of when I'm saying that identity is the most defining layer of the top three. Generative layers is what Bateson called the top three levels. They were the beliefs and values, identity, and the vision. Just so to repeat. And I want you to remember that slide again and realize that identity fell exactly in between the two other layers, the beliefs and values and the vision, the layer of the purpose. Now, why identity is so relevant is because it caters in both the factors, the layers above and below it. It integrates belief, value, and vision into coherent action. Now, I think I will next talk about what these values and beliefs are and what is this purpose that I'm consistently talking about and how are they guiding identity, right? So, what are beliefs? Beliefs are basically our mental constructs. They are things that we hold true. We accept as true. They need not be proven. They may be irrational also. There's something that we hold true, whereas values are what we deem important. They are our guiding principles. They are what we attach importance to in our lives, right? Now, even as I explain what beliefs and values are, you would be looking for examples in your mind and realizing that both of these things are interdependent. A classic example is that if you're valuing health, if you're somebody who values health, then you would invariably end up believing that eating healthy, eating green leafy vegetables is good for a healthy life, that sleeping for 8 hours is very important for a healthy life, that waking up early and going for a walk or exercising is very important. So one depends on the other. Similarly, consider someone who deeply believes that every human carries potential, right? अभी पहले हमने देखा कि a belief, a value is guiding a belief. Now I'm trying to tell you how beliefs guide values. So if somebody truly deeply believes that every human carries potential, they will end up believing that they will end up believing in the virtues of fairness, of inclusion, of opportunities, right? And this is also slightly moving to the example of a classroom, but I'll come to that later. I first want you to acknowledge the fact that both of these are different. Both of these are different, but yet interdependent, and both of them nudge towards identity. They shape our behavior and they determine who we are in the roles that we take on. Now, the example from a classroom that I have basically tried to look at is that if a teacher values curiosity, right, she will end up believing that questioning is a very important way in is a way to conduct her lessons in the teaching learning process rather than telling. So she will weigh questioning over telling, right? So that is how her identity in the class changes. I will explain about it perhaps more when I take my own example later. But I'm hoping that I am being clear up till now. Do we want a yes or a no here? Is everybody with me? Yes.
I think just a
Yes.
thumbs up would really help from everybody. Oh, there are lots of yeses coming. So
Okay, great. Great. So next we move on to the right-hand side of the screen, which says goals determine identity. And I want to talk about how that happens. Now, what can be a one good example of vision? When I say it's an overarching why, what can be one example of vision? I want to help learners become thinkers and not just performers. That's my goal as a teacher. Do you see, even as I say it out, it very clearly tells you how I'm supposed to behave in my classes. Now, again, this is not just example based or based on my likeness for this model. What we hold as vision actually quietly reorganizes who we become. Our vision is our overarching why. Yes, it literally is our north. It guides which paths we take on in our life as we live. And we become the kind of people required to serve that big why. Again, this is not my saying. We all have access to this very viral TED talk called What is Your Why? Actually, the TED talk was called the Golden Principle talk given by somebody called Simon Sinek, again, a leadership trainer. And he says that the clarity of purpose is actually what inspires meaningful action. Uh, that every meaningful initiative is derived first out of a why. It will give way to a how, and eventually it will reveal what the what is, right? So for teachers, what does this become? The idea is to understand why they teach, first of all, then think about how they are teaching, and then eventually say that this is what I'm teaching. Then finally come to the subject. And before I move on, no, the why cannot be the money or the salary at the end of the month. That is just a byproduct. I want you all to think of the why as the greater reason for why you were actually in this profession at the onset, right? I have missed a point about we all of us must have read this famous article by Professor Krishna Kumar, where Indian Express opened about 2 months back, where he was analyzing why the teachers are walking away from the profession. And he very, very categorically said that the teachers are not leaving because of the pay grades or the lesson plans. They're actually leaving because they seem to have forgotten why they began in the first place, or they can't recognize who they have become. Both classic vision issue and identity issue. So, everywhere I look, in fact, I have instances which support this model, which say that if the teacher is not convinced, whatever capacity building you do with the teacher, it is going to fall flat. It is not going to be effective as you would hope that it is. Okay. There's a roadblock again.
I'm able to see your screen. It's fine.
Yeah, yes. Now, right. So all of what I have said up till now is basically the essence of it all is that you cannot separate a teacher from into her professional and personal side. Who she is inherently is what she will bring to the classroom. And to justify, in a way, my point, I'm going to do a small activity here and I want you to see what that reveals. So what I have here is a simple strip of paper and it has two sides clearly. On one side, I have written who I am, and on the other side, I have written how I teach. Right? Simple strip of paper has two sides. If you want to go from one side to the other, you're clearly crossing over the edges. Now, what I will do is I will transform this strip of paper into a simple ring. And I see that the duality is still retained. Like there are still two surfaces. If I start on the side which says how I teach and I keep my finger moving across the surface, it stays in there. It cannot cross over to the other side. If I move my finger on the outer side, that's where it stays. If I want to go to the other side, I have to cross the edge. So the duality is still there. What if I twist one end and now tape it together? Here, if it's visible on your screen, is a very peculiar mathematical surface. You would have noticed this as the logo of the international symbol of recycling. I don't know if the shape hits you. We can talk about it later. Now, why those people chose this as the logo is because of its inherent property. This strip called the Mobius strip mathematical structure has this property that it dissolves duality. What started as two sides to a strip, you will notice as I move the pencil across the strip, is now dissolving into just one surface. So I have my fingers on one side and I have my thumb on the other, right? That's the distinction I want you to make. And if I start on the surface where my fingers are and I keep moving without lifting my pencil, if I keep moving without lifting my pencil, I keep going, I have reached the side where my thumb was, right? I actually crossed over the surface without jumping the edges. Now, if I still keep going and I still keep going and I still keep going, I eventually return to the side where I started. Now, why I chose this mathematical surface for this activity today is because now it is a very powerful modern day metaphor for what ancient spiritual schools of thought in India believed, something called the Advait Vedanta, believed that the self and the reality are not two distinct things, they are one continuous whole. What you saw here was how I teach, who I am is actually one continuous whole. And that is exactly my point, that unless you make them align, unless you make them fall into this continuous continuum, you will not be able to get the results that you want in your classrooms. Are we together? Can I move on? Again, a little thumbs up. Okay. So I'm assuming we are together here. Now, I would want to.
Sorry. I just wanted to chip in to say that was a fascinating, I don't know, what is it, a live demo or an experiment?
Yeah,
But an
it's a
amazing demo of the concept.
yeah, it hits you. It just gets you on the thought exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, we have
Right.
lots of thumbs up, so let's go on.
So now I would want to explain how what I believe in. I mean, this model came very late in my life. I had been teaching far before this model came into my life. But I realized that I was intuitively being what this model proposes. I was very clear with my vision as a teacher. I was very clear of who I wanted to be in my classes. And I had some beliefs corresponding to that. And it has done me well. I mean, learners are still in my class, perhaps that I taught way back in 2015 is still in touch with me and they keep telling me, ma'am, जो आप समझाते थे वो कोई और नहीं समझाता था. Like we completely saw maths differently in your classes. And this is not to boast. This is just to bring across the fact that I was oriented towards the fact that this is who I am and this is how I will teach. What do I mean when I say that? Now, my vision has been, yeah. I truly believe this Robert Frost saying where he says, I'm not a teacher, but an awakener. Back in CIE, when we were doing our B.Ed, we were right in the beginning of the course, we were made to write our general objectives. And only today I was watching somebody write on LinkedIn whether if we do really want to figure out what our immediate why is, right? Won't just the overarching why, the bigger why, not be able to define very conveniently how we present ourselves, how we conduct our teachings in our classrooms. So my why was I wanted to inspire. And in fact, that's a very generic why that I have in life. I want to inspire in whatever roles I take on. My identity, again, generic, is that I want to be a facilitator. For whosoever is there in my sphere, I want to ease their process of existence if I can in any way, right? That is my identity. And my belief is that for two humans to exist reasonably decently, they have to communicate. Communication is a prerequisite for understanding. Now, with these three statements, again, you will accept that somebody can have different visions, multiple senses of self as per the roles they're taking on in life, and therefore correspondingly different beliefs. But in my case, these three can be easily contextualized into my classroom narrative, right? How do they help me shape my behavior? If I am already thinking about inspiring people as my whole soul purpose in life, I will want to, in fact, try and anchor inspiration in my classrooms. Now, when I say anchor, this is a very deliberate design choice that I'll come to later on. I will also understand that my teaching strategy will have to give tangibility to this concept of inspiration. It is something that you feel, it's abstract. you cannot actually hand over an inspiration to your learner, right? So now I am trying to look for, while inspiration is a very valid cognitive input, it cannot be delivered. And therefore, I am trying to look now for cognitive scaffolds that will guide me to align with the theory of education. There are various around. I can choose the one that aligns with my vision and my identity. And clearly, those who have done or have an interest in philosophy of education will come down to the Bruner's narrative mode of knowing, where he says that while facts can be told, narrated, uh, it's a story that resonates, right? So if inspiration cannot be handed over, you will have to emote it out through a story. Now, when all of these three together aligned in my classes, I started consciously taking storytelling, and this was way back, way before storytelling became as the hip word it now is, right? I consciously began taking my classes um, around stories. And now the confession here is that if I'm teaching a grade 11 or a grade 12, the pressure to complete syllabus is insane, right? So it's not that I walk into my class every day and I'm teaching differential calculus and I will come up with a story. They will kick me out, the children. But invariably, in one chapter, at some point in time, if I see there is lesser motivation in the class, if I see the class is not engaged as per my requirement, I will simply not teach. I will talk about some story, some reference from real life, and discuss that concept. So, what you see here is what we call the Hilbert's Infinity Hotel. And the mathematicians joining in will know that this is a classic story for explaining how two things for explaining how infinity plus one is also infinity, and how between one infinity you can have two infinities. I don't think I want to narrate the story as such right now. The, the moral of the story is what I just said, the two things. My problem is, in our teaching, we encounter infinity primary grade में शुरू हो जाता है when we talk of natural numbers. And we tell our children, ये natural numbers का set है, ये countable है और ये infinite है. Leave away your lenses of your matured, learned self. Think of this concept as a learner would perceive it. How can something be countable and yet be infinite? I mean, it's a mystery for these people. But when you narrate this story, in fact, let me just say it out. So, this hotel is about having infinite rooms. The Grand Hilbert Hotel has infinite rooms. And one fine day, it's full, like all rooms are occupied. But the manager sees a guest arriving and it's night. And the guest says that do whatever, but I want to spend the night at your hotel. And the manager is very calm and he says, don't worry, I will make space for you. And so he calls up the guest in the first room and he says, can you please shift to room number 2? And he calls up the guest in the second room and he requests, please shift to the next room, room number 3. And he calls the guest in room number 4 and so on and so forth. So while they're moving ahead, plus one, plus one, plus one, the room number 1 has been made vacant for this guest to check in, right? Now, the next day, infinite guests arrive. What do you expect the manager to say? No, he did not say no. He said, don't worry, we will make space for you. Now, this time what he does is he calls up the guest in room number 1 and asks him to shift to room number 2. He calls up the guest in room number 2 and he asks him to shift to room number 4. Then he calls up the guest in room number 3 and asks them to shift to room number 6. Do you realize what is happening? Every guest is made to shift to a room which is double the existing number that he's holding, right? So this means that all odd numbered rooms are now vacant and these infinite guests walk in. Now, my point is, like I established before, you've already made two things very clear to your learner. Other than that, what you have also done is you have made yourself, made available for yourself this opportunity to talk about how infinity comes across in real life, right? I was going to talk of some literary, this book, by John Green, Fault in Our Stars. We have a very beautiful dialogue in there that says that some infinities are bigger than other infinities. You have literally explained this dialogue, that literary reference you have, and you have explained it through maths, right? why will you miss this chance of explaining to your, say, middle school learner that infinity also arrives in computer science, in coding? How? If you go wrong with your loops, the if then loop, the while loop, if you go wrong there, you will end up falling into an infinite loop and the program will go degenerate, right? How can you not talk about how infinity appears in physics? The concept of black holes is actually nothing but infinity. So, this need to actively engage learners, if you are talking of so much in your classes, there is no way that the learner is not listening to you. And once you have it's simply a hook. Once you have your learners hooked on to you, you can then tell them whatever concept, whatever activity, whatever lesson you intend to give. Right? Now, okay. Okay, that is another favorite where Abhi May Operation Sindoor was unfolding. And I was literally calling up my erstwhile colleagues and asking, please remember, you have to show using the classic example of drones. Well, every day in the news, we would be like, आज इधर drone spot हुआ, आज उधर Pakistani drone spot हुआ. So I was telling them, please make use of this chance and talk about how will any forge, be it the enemy or be it us, how does the forge actually monitor, uh, actually survey these drones? How do you find out the position of a particular drone in space at some given time? What I have on your screens is actually that. Like if you say that the position is given by XYZ 3D space, PXYZ is the position, and then if XYZ are functions of T, which is the time, you can clearly find out what the position is at any given time. Now, if you're talking of drones, again, how can you not refer to projectile motion in physics? How can you not refer to satellite movement in geography? So, I mean, the scope is endless. You just have to convince yourself that this is who you are in your class. There is no way that you can go wrong with getting the learner hooked onto you. Now, as I say this, I'm also saying that this does not mean leave the subject or leave the technique behind. Uh, the purpose of my talk is not to deny the science of learning. It is just to say that the science of learning is responsible, but to expect that the teacher who is actually supposed to carry out or implement that science of learning in the classroom is not oriented towards it, that is sheer irresponsibility, right? It's unreal. You cannot expect her to do that. Uh, what time are we at? Okay. So I think we will skip to the. These were two other examples that I wanted to talk about, but I think we're running a little late. I did get carried away. Now,
So, sorry to interrupt, but please feel
yeah.
free to continue with the flow of the presentation as you'd intended. It's absolutely fine if we stretch a little bit, given that the topics that you're explaining are so fascinating.
Oh, I mean, I can't go past these two because I've made my point, I think, with the two examples. This was the figure on the left is actually about prime numbers and the spirals they create. And I was just going to talk about how nature is prime number coded, how extraterrestrial intelligence, Carl Sagan talked of um, if there was any contact from the aliens, it would be on the basis of prime numbers. So what I'm trying to say is these are concepts that we don't talk about. Like even infinity, कोई trigonometry में जब आता है ninth class में, tan 90s infinity करके भाग जाते हैं हम लोग. मतलब इतना conditioning हो जाता है learner का that when eventually they have to address infinity in grade 11, जब limits के questions आते हैं, they are so conditioned against the concept that they dread the concept that they don't even want to attempt to solve that question. And my point is that please talk of the concepts that you're teaching, and you will be able to talk about them only if you're driven from the inside. Now, yeah, the other clarification that I needed to make was that this is not to put myself on a pedestal and say, see, my vision was inspiration. You have to emulate me. You have to have that vision. I am just saying that teaching, by virtue of its nature, by the profession that it is influential, right? You cannot not influence your learners. So might as well be ethically and more consciously be responsible of the influence that you're creating. And I think that is what inspiration is. If you're inspiring, if you're influencing in an ethical or a conscious, more aware way, you're basically inspiring. So when I talk of capacity building, again, like I just said, I am not saying do not talk of techniques or strategies of the science of learning. I'm saying that please give a good 20 minutes in a 1 hour slot for capacity building where the teacher is just asked to write about what he or she feels they are doing in the classes, what their vision is. I mean, these are very basic questions pertaining to the model, but there can be many questions that can come out of these three basic questions, right? So that is what I'm saying, that once they start thinking, they will eventually end up inspiring, is my point. Okay, now we come to how we build this in. So the question that I've often been asked is कि ये सब तो ठीक है theory में, but how do we help the teacher translate who they are, whatever their understanding of their identity is, whatever their statement of vision is, how do we help the teacher translate that into how they're teaching, right? Like I said, a classic design issue, which I mentioned earlier also. Now, my hack is a simple 3-step hack, which I call the Essence Echo Explore hack. It's right there on your screen. And at its heart, it's basically about teaching meaning. It's about not delivering content, like I explained through my examples. It's just talking about whatever your concept, whatever your lesson, whatever grade you're teaching, just taking that concept and step one, looking at it in its essence. What is the core of that concept? Strip away the jargon. Ask yourself, what is this really about? So you come to the essence of your concept. The next step is to figure out where that concept echoes around you, right? What the word says, echo. Kaha around you, be it natural, be it cultural narratives, be it human narratives around you, where does that concept show up differently? But obviously, you have to interpret. Your role as a teacher now is to help the learner understand that, see, what you're looking at here also pertains to this concept from the subject, right? As I say this, I'm also reminded of the fact that this hack is a very meaningful STEM hack also. And STEM आजकल बहुत NEP और NCF के चलते. It's a very meaningful STEM strategy also. Coming to the third step, which is explore. So now the teacher tries to figure out कि ऐसा क्या question, activity, project हम learners को दे दें where the learner herself or himself is able to visualize the connection, the echo that we found for them. Right. Now, I think I have, yeah. So next 3 slides are just my examples of how, again, I have taught senior levels. So I'm sorry that my example comes from grade 11 maths, where if you're talking of limits, my sense is that limit is basically about approaching. It is not about arriving. And it is what something tends to. It needn't become it. Do you get what I'm saying? Again, the maths teachers might know. And if there is time, or perhaps even after the talk is over, you can all get in touch with me through Garima and Shalini, wherein if you have doubts कि ये सिर्फ maths में दिखा रहे हो आप, ये और subjects में हो सकता है, बहुत easily हो सकता है, you just have to put your mind to it, right? So, like I said, the essence for limit is that something tends to something, but it does not actually become it. Now, where does this concept, this essence, echo around me? And I say it appears in language where I can talk of emotions. You are brimming with some emotion, but you're not able to confess it out to the person who it is for, right? You're approaching the overflow of emotions, but you're not able to get it out. That's an echo of the concept of limits. Again, we can talk of systems nearing collapse, right? They aren't collapsed as yet. They're just approaching that. And this can again have be geographical systems where I talk of glacial systems about to rupture, or I talk of river systems about to overflow or recede, or completely dry up. We can talk of civilizational systems in history about to collapse, right? We can talk of economies imploding. Not yet there, but there are signs, and therefore you talk of limits in that context also. And then eventually, my question for them at the level of exploring becomes that we are not just solving limits, we are looking at them in every sphere around us. You talk about where you see a limit unfolding around you. You talk about what happens when something reaches its edge of tolerance, right? So even if the learner wants to use ChatGPT, वो कुछ तो prompt डालेगा जहां पर उसका thinking हिलेगा. And that is the aim, I think, of any teaching anywhere, right? Um, I think that is how we can very easily build in our senses of self, our visions into our lessons. No better way wherein you have the vision that I have to teach, I have the identity that I have to facilitate my lessons, I have to put this across to my learners, and you just get through to it. So I forgot to move my slide ahead, but I have references here from 4 different subjects, and you can take a minute and read through. I did talk of river systems or tectonic plates nearing pressure limits. Very valid example. I did talk of what are ellipses in language. Ellipses are जब आप आजकल WhatsApp पे भी काफी हो गया है ये कि you leave a sentence open with 3 dots, right? You do not end it. Very clearly, you want to say something. There is something more to be added, but you leave it unspecified. Classic case of limit manifesting itself in language, right? History, civilizations, like I said, reforms and revolutions. Um, I mean, outside where I live, I talk of this example where they have a toll plaza and they will charge us every day, every trip we make, but the quality of road is like unbearable. And so I was telling my daughter that, we are actually approaching the limit of tolerance. Someday we are going to put up a dharna here. All these residents of my society will actually stand there and say, what the heck is happening, right? So that's what I mean when I say um, limits in history, civics. And then these are questions pertaining to each of these subjects. I seem to have missed the title of history. Upar. Anyway, I'm sure the point is made. Now, I did not quite find there were leaders in the audience, but this particular section of my talk is for them, where I'm literally going to beg them to understand what I'm saying and bring in, like I said earlier, 20 minutes at least in a 1 hour slot that you fix for your workshop, teacher building, capacity building, whatever you call it. Please make your teachers answer questions. If there are teachers who have joined in, please look at the slide and answer for yourself, and you will get to very basic, very fundamental, yet very radical statements of vision that will guide how your behavior becomes in your classes, what identities you take on, and how your teaching becomes effective. Okay. Yes. Now, the most valid reason that I found for putting across this point that I'm making today was that we are in the AI age. No questions about that. Every day we are figuring out if the teachers will be removed out of the system. But I want you to understand that we keep saying ये सारे LinkedIn post में first line आती है, information and instruction will be automated. But then what? But then I want you to understand that what part of a teacher will be unchallenged still? It will be the ethical, the meaning making, and the relational capacities that a teacher takes on or brings to the classroom. This makes human alignment, what I keep saying, talk of your visions and identities and your beliefs, that human alignment and professional identity development a very forward looking strategy. And teachers who are anchored thus will not complete with AI. I don't know if Viplav Bakshi is out there in the audience, but I had a word with him on LinkedIn the other day where we said that no, we are not, even if I believe to quite a large extent that AI should not enter our education systems, our schools. Yet, I might welcome AI in, but not on the condition that I'm going to compete with it, only because together the teacher will know just how to use AI and guide the learners ahead. And that brings us to this last question, I think, where I want you to answer what usually makes the biggest difference in difficult situations. Think of any scenario that you have in your life, which is a challenging scenario, and think of what helps. Yeah, I'm very proud of how the results are coming in because Um, Clearly, not one option is being left, although, yes, option one is being left behind slightly. But I kind of know where we all are now at. We are aligned on the same page. Glad about that. We can end that. And basically, what I want to take away from this poll result is that yes, leverage is not one variable. It's actually a relationship between many variables. And if I can I go on to the next slide, please?
Yes, I've stopped the poll.
Yeah. So what I want to end with is this classic quote by Archimedes, where he says that give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I will move the world. So the problem is not about moving the world. The problem is not about finding a lever long enough. वो तो मिल जाएगा. But उतने लंबे lever के साथ कहाँ खड़े होगे exactly to be able to get the earth moving. So I keep saying that in physics, this is classic physics, right? Leverage isn't created by how much force you apply, it's created by where you apply it. So a small force at the right point will invariably move more than a large force will at the wrong point. And education today doesn't lack, therefore, the effort. It lacks correct placement of effort. The change we need will not come from more capacity building. Yes, I'm saying it like that, but by building that capacity in terms of identity and vision, right? There is priority to that, right? You build capacities, but before that, you build their senses of self. That is the leverage we want to create. So let us ensure that who we are, what we are doing, how we are doing it is not being pulled in different directions. Let us align ourselves towards this change that we are all looking at. And let us then, therefore, transform this high stress and almost challenging technical task that teaching is becoming invariably into a sustainable, fulfilling profession that not just helps retain good teachers, but also helps us in getting student learning done, right? That will be the real leverage. And I was supposed to say thank you, but me being me, I'm reminded of a very important example from the movie Chak De. If you all remember, Shah Rukh Khan ka jo character tha, when he starts coaching the team, the first day he arrives and he says, he gets them all to line up and he says, introduce yourselves. And the first three or four girls say out their names and the state they come from. And then there is Vidya Sharma from Delhi, but she says Vidya Sharma, India. And he says, yes, that's what I want. So it's identity that he looked at first before he started teaching them hockey ke techniques. And with that, I rest my case.
Thank you so much. Soumita, we have a bunch of questions, but before I move on to the questions, fascinating. I really loved, especially that demo that you did to show how duality exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It was fascinating. In the interest of time, I'll quickly move to some of the questions. Seema Iqbal says, you may have touched on this earlier, but which first step would you personally prioritize for maximum classroom impact?
That's what I say. You have to hit at the deepest level, the innermost self. We keep saying this in various ways in our lives. It's all in the mind. You have to believe in what you can do. You have to know your potential. All that are just different ways of saying that um, just know who you are. So for me, like I said in the slideshow also, okay, yes, vision, yes, beliefs and values, but identity. आप अगर identity भी sort कर लोगे अपना, just tell yourself that this is who I'm going to be as a teacher and rise up to that. You do not have to consciously change your behavior. You will find yourself if you are acknowledging that, if you're responsibly aware of what you have given yourself as the task, क्या role आपने अपने लिए choose किया है, you will rise up to it. कोई नहीं चाहता that he or she falls in their own eyes, right? Like, how bad is it? Now, do you get the question that I asked in the beginning of the slideshow where we were talking about New Year resolutions? We are so afraid to even make resolutions because somewhere we know that we will goof up, right? Nobody wants to do that. So consciously admit to yourself that this is who I am, this is what I will do, and your inner instincts will make you move towards it.
Thanks, Soumita. Anjuman Shahid wants to know, ma'am, in early childhood education, how can capacity building respect developmental appropriateness while meeting academic goals?
So, again, why won't you not look at the problem in a more generic, like step out of the frame a little bit, look at what the problem is. See, across teaching, the only problem is to make yourself clearer to the learner that you're addressing, whatever age group the learner may come from. अब ये सारे theories, I don't want to go into them because यहीं पर फिर conflict आता है कि this is primary, this is secondary. Just address the entire scenario, take a step back and see aim kya hai. And then which do you think, what of the theories that you have in front of you, which aligns best with how you're going to approach it? Please keep remembering the golden principle always. It's the why and it's the how and it's then the what. So let your how eventually, yes, first let your why, then your how guide what you're going to do in your classrooms. I will keep saying that over and over again. I will not go and address these specific questions that we have because I do believe that you yourself are capable. See, I haven't taught primary level as much, and I have all due respect because that's the most challenging level. जब आप adults को पढ़ाते हो, they communicate. You can have them answer your questions. But with little children, you do not have that freedom, right? That's a privilege that you don't have. So guide yourself कि कैसे भी करके whatever theory is pertaining to my sense of who I am, let me try that out and let me see what works best.
Um, Before I move on to the next question, I actually see lots of questions around, is there a feedback form? Yes, the feedback form will be shared at the end of this webinar. A lot of our participants are asking if they will receive a certification. Yes, we will be sharing a certificate with each and every attendee and a recording of this webinar and a free ebook. So all of that will be in your inboxes once the webinar is over. Sorry, just give me one moment.
Shalini, just a little point here. I might have
Sure.
to leave by latest by 6:15. I have something come up. I just got a message.
No problem at all. In fact, we're running over time. So one
Yeah,
last question
yes.
from Zahoor. Please let me know how can we manage the last minutes of class once we finish our lesson. I want to make class attractive and enjoyable during those minutes also. And I want to know especially how this is possible, especially for higher classes. This is the last
Right.
question.
I feel you. I hear you totally. And my only way through that is I've always kept an activity like this one handy. एक there's this very interesting book that has riddles throughout, and especially for higher age learners, you can keep that book with you. I will send it out as a message later. You can have stories handy where you know that you will have those many minutes with you at the end of the class and know that this is when I will utilize that time, and it might not pertain to that topic that you are actually doing in that period, right? It might be anything from your subject, but have something concrete. Don't fiddle for what to do. Don't look for things at the last minute. तीन चार अपने options खोल के रखो. Have 3-4 stories. Keep reading up. And I keep saying this. All of you should be on LinkedIn. There's a lot that you get to read there. Reading will only help you get better at what you do. You don't have to align yourself with the suggestions in these posts that you come across in your feed. Just take them in, process them inside you, and yeah, before I get carried away, to answer that specific question, always have uh, anecdotes, activities, stories handy that you can just out of your mind pull up and narrate.
Thanks so much, Soumita. Thank you so much for making the time today on behalf of all our participants and Garma and lead group.
Oh, thank you.
Loved hearing
Thank you.
you and the insights you had to share. Very, very insightful for all of us. Thanks so much.
I'm thankful to everybody. I hope something was to be taken away from this conversation, and wishing you all the best. We can do it. It's only us. Forget everything else. It's the teachers who will change the scene of education. So just believe in that and go forth.
Thanks so much, Soumita.
Thank you. Thank you.
Garma, can we continue with our closing slides, please?
Yes, just sharing.
Thank you. So, this webinar was organized by Lead Group, and Soumita very graciously agreed to lead it for us. Can we move to the next slide, Karma? So, a little bit about us. We are India's largest and fastest growing school learning systems company. If you look at the numbers on the screen, they're kind of self explanatory. But I did want to share that the vision on screen, which is to make excellent learning accessible for every child in India, is very, very close to our hearts. It's what each one of us is working towards every day. We have a suite of products and offerings that we offer to schools across India, 8,500 plus schools. Every day, more than 3.8 million students are studying using our learning systems. And we're across 400, more than 400 actually, towns and cities across India, and nearly 60,000 teachers every day is what we engage with. The next slide, please. So just to give you a sense, our learning system comprises world-class books, audiovisual learning resources, TVs, panels. We offer teacher tabs with preloaded lessons. And of course, there are activities to make sure that your classrooms are truly NEP aligned, truly multimodal, and really helping your students get better and better every day, helping to move them away from rote learning and getting them to really understand concepts inside out. That's what we try to do in each classroom every day all through the year. Next slide, please. I'd request anybody who wants to reach out to us to take a screenshot of the screen in front of you right now. It has our numbers. You could give us a missed call. You could email us. You can visit our website. If you have a question or you need to know how we can help you grow your school and improve learning outcomes, we're always there to address any questions and happy to have a chat. Thank you once again for attending our webinar.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.